Howdy, it's old Fletch. Hooty hoo. Sitting here at the home front, just thinking about old JD. Miss him real bad. He's up there in the big fishing hole in the sky, probably catching smallmouth out of some old stream up there, having a big time, hooting and hollering, chasing women. That was what he was best at, chasing and catching them. Old Dad, he was always an old trot liner, an old limb liner. He was always trying to do everything he could to catch whatever fish he could. So he was always a catching perch and a baiting it, the trot line and limb line up, and caught many of them 30 and 40 and a few 50-pound flatheads. And so he loved doing that, and I loved doing it with him. I can remember running that old trot line, and we pull that trot line up, and you could feel that old line just a surging. You're like, God dang, JD said, there's a banging on there, son. And boy, it would get you fired up. Now, he was always wanting to catch them old beggins, and he said there's 100-pounder out there is what he always kept trying to tell me. And I was like, oh, Dad, you're so full of it. You know what you're talking about. But he was always, in the chase for catch the biggest old flathead in the lake. So there's a little creek down there below our house called Lee's Branch. And that branch runs right through the property that I own now. And there was a bunch of standing timber in there. And old JD had been out in the woods there and cut him a bunch of little cedars and cut the limbs off of them and nailed them to these trees to where he had limb lines to where he could drop a line down in the water and put a perch hooked on them lines in the evenings and go back and check them in the morning. Well, just so be it, I'd been night fishing a lot. I've been fishing all my life. That's all I'd ever done. So, that was when I got grounded, which I got grounded a lot for all the stuff I did, well, I'd just go fishing. So, there's one of these stretches where I was grounded and I couldn't go to town. They wouldn't let me take the truck because I'd probably wrecked one or got a ticket or something. I'm kind of famous for doing the wrong thing. Come by it naturally. But, so Dad had all them limb lines. Hell, he had them everywhere. I bet there was 10 of them there in 2 little old pockets. And I was out there and I was catching little old bitty Kentuckies, 12, 13, 14 inches. And I said, boy, I'm going to mess with old JD tonight. So I was keeping every one of them old Kentuckies that I could catch. And he had big old perch on them limb lines. I mean, they's biggins. These, 4-inch perch, pretty good size. It'd take a big old bass, to eat one of them. And so I went and took every one of them perch off, and I put a little Kentucky on every one of them dadgum limb lines. And there was one big old cedar tree that he had a limb tacked to that was right there next to the boat dock. And so I thought, well, I'm really going to mess with him. So I got up there and I busted that pole off. I broke the limb line off, and then I took the line and I frayed it all up so it was all frayed up. And then I got my pliers and I bent the hook out and left it like that. And I knew he'd get so wound up he couldn't stand it. And so that next day he went out there and he come back in and he said, Jeffrey. And when he'd get real wound up, that's what he'd call me. He and Joanne both, they'd be like, Jeffrey. Or if I was in trouble, it was Jeffrey. He said, I have had the biggest catfish on in the lake. That one I've been looking for, he defeated me. He said he has tore my limb line up, frayed my line up, and straightened the hook. And I am bound and determined to catch him. And I said, what are you talking about, Dad? And he said, I don't know. But he said, every other dadgum limb line, he said, had a 12 or 13-inch Kentucky on it. I don't know how they ate them little old big old perch. And then that one, Lord, I have a feeling one of them Kentuckies got on there, and that big old catfish come up there and ate him. He said, that's got to be what happened, Jeffrey. And I said, God, it's got to be, Dad. It has to be. He was so shook up and fired up about it, he just couldn't stand it. And so that went on for years, him talking about that big old catfish that he had on that limb line. And, I got to feeling bad about it. I mean, I don't know. I was probably up in my 30s or early 40s before I ever told him what happened. And so I said, Dad, that big catfish you're always talking about down there at the big cedar tree in that little pocket by the dock? He said, yeah. And I said, well, I was out fishing that night, and I put all them Kentuckys on them limb lines. And I said, I busted that pole off and frayed that line up. He said, I knew it was you, you little shit. You're always a messing with me. All these years I thought I had on the biggest catfish in the Dadgum Creek, and you're the one that did it all. So that's the time that I pulled a good one on old JD. I'm out. Fletch is going to bed.